So why do you sabotage your own success? So many people don't realize that they're sabotaging their own success, whether it be in business or relationships. Now, you may be in a business and you feel like you're trying to push the needle so far, but you seem to keep coming back. No matter how much time you spend investing in growing the business and team, the money's still not there. And every time you try to push product out further, but you only seem to hit a certain number. Or maybe it could be in your relationship, that every time you try to create some type of resolution or some type of growth with your partner, it just ends up in an argument. Or maybe you're trying to connect a bit deeper, but every time you connect deeper, it ends up being an argument again. So what's the reason that these things keep happening over and over? In this video, I'm going to be sharing the fundamental things that are so important to understand at the unconscious level of how to shift this, because it's not the outside. Hey, I'm Michael Sorgiovanni, and for the last decade, I have been helping individuals all around the world break self-destructive behaviors and take charge of their life so they can live life on their own terms. And in this video, I want to break down the most important areas that are going to help you really identify what it is and what's holding you back. Let's start with this. So we mentioned business, we've mentioned relationships, we've mentioned, there's also the mindset of it. Every person, I believe, that needs to look at this from the individual level. It's very easy to broadly look at this and we call it sabotage. But what is sabotage? Like, what specifically is that? Such a label. Sabotage falls under the umbrella of behaviors like procrastination, like imposter syndrome, like substance abuse, or alcohol or drugs, or it could be continuously fighting, avoiding things that that are going to make you successful. Or even when you get at that figure, at that number where everything's gone really good, but you find a way to kind of crash it all the way down. And without you realizing, you keep going around this cycle. Now, important things to recognize that there is a cycle. And when you recognize that you have your own unique cycle that's going around, you're able to identify what's happening. I refer to this as the mold. And the mold essentially is an unconscious structure that creates our limits. It's the limits of how much we allow ourselves to give and the limits of how much we allow ourselves to receive. So how much we're allowing ourselves to give out to the world, put out to the world, like give value or just more love. What we allow ourselves to receive, money-wise, love-wise, affection-wise, the positive things that we want in our life. There is a set benchmark unconsciously. And meaning unconsciously is there's a threshold that switches. So you've probably seen before in your life that you've maybe found an enormous amount of success, right? Where you're going through a streak that you're winning, when your best month or something, maybe your best week. And all of a sudden, maybe the energy in yourself starts to drop off, or you get distracted, or you start spending all the money, or you start creating an argument or fight, and bit by bit comes all the way down. So what happens at that level is there's a threshold that hits emotionally that we're not comfortable with. And what happens, something switches in our brain. And that switch now starts to change the motive. Now, this is done a whole different number of ways. And I'll break down how it can be created. One, it can be created as a child. Now, as a child, we can have a certain threshold that we've learned. So let's just say if I've got dad, right? And dad, every time he deals with a scenario or a situation, he goes and gets the bottle and he throws a few down. Or every time he tries to deal with a situation, he creates an argument or he just runs and hops in the car and takes off. Now, we can look at this as from a content perspective, or we look at it from a context perspective. In this video, I want to look at it from a context perspective to get an understanding. A content perspective would be looking at it in a way to resolve it. So a content perspective would be looking at, okay, so dad's drinking the bottle and he's criticizing everyone and is making me feel sad and so on. From a context perspective, what's happening is, okay, so dad's got overwhelmed, and the way dad has learned how to deal with the overwhelm, he learns how to distract himself from something. He learns how to dismiss himself. He learns how to run from something. And because I've never learned what to do at that point, so what happens is that emotional threshold has been formed. So later on in life, I may hop into a relationship and there may be an argument. And it doesn't mean I'm going to run for the bottle. It doesn't mean I'm going to demonstrate the same behaviors. But what may happen is it will hit that threshold that I'm not comfortable with and I don't know what happens after that. So what happens, our brain switches something and we find whatever behavior it might be. Whatever behavior it might be, it could be pushing away, it could be sabotaging, it could be drinking something, it could be running or arguing. And everyone has their own unique behaviors and patterns of how they demonstrate them. So that's how that can be formed. All right, now to get into the details, the content, everyone has different scenarios. So the important thing here is to recognize that we have a pattern And once we see we have a pattern, we can change it. So that's an understanding of how it happens. So as I mentioned before, our molds. Our mold is the unconscious structure which sets the limits. So if there are limits, right, in order to break those limits, we would need to think of what we never thought before. We would need to jump new levels of consciousness, because this limit here is created on a certain conscious level. Okay, the conscious experience that we've created on this level, and we create our perceived reality. What we perceive is right, what we perceive is wrong, through our senses, 5 senses: taste, touch, sight, sound, smell. And in this reality is where we create this plane for and these limits. Now, above this line, above this reality where we think different, we feel different, we experience life different, that pattern may not exist. But to get to that different point, we have to shift something in ourselves. Okay, how to do that? I'm going to get into that soon in the video about the breakdown steps of how to resolve that. But to further get a better understanding of that, we have this running in the background. So how do we teach ourselves to deserve more? How do we teach ourselves to break that threshold? So it's understanding whether it's, how do I get myself to feel like I'm worthy of more? How do I get myself more resilient to when something does happen, I can able and withstand a certain amount of pressure and not just distracting myself, not just going into survival. So essentially the nervous system in our body and our brain is going into a mode where it's shutting everything down. And everyone goes through a bit different. Now, the behaviors that can happen in business, in relationships, in your personal, just your mindset, and overall, these can start spreading into different areas, and we can normalize these behaviors. And over time, when we normalize these behaviors, what tends to happen is that's how we create the cycle. And what happens is when the cycle happens, it may be a different experience which distracts us. So we could get help over here and sabotage it. We could go jump over to a new relationship over here and it ends the same way. We could end up starting up another business, but it ends a certain way, or I end up feeling the same way. The thing to identify is the feeling that you land in at the end, because the feeling that you land in will give you the information that is required for you to really understand on the core of what's happening behind that pattern. So I should have a question. Every time I do full, and every time I do full down here, what am I really thinking? What am I really feeling? Like, what's happening in me? What's the message I'm sending myself? Is it a feeling that I don't feel worthy? Is it a feeling that I don't feel good enough? And the other question to ask yourself is, when I get to this point, when things are going really good, when they're going high and everything's going really good, what happens to me? Do I lose motivation? Do I start to pick fights with someone? Do I start to spend all the money? Like, what are the behaviors that I do specifically when things are going really good? And what are the feelings and behaviors that I go down to when things are going, in my perception, really bad? The more you can really, really see what you're doing and how you're doing it, sometimes I've seen in many cases, the awareness will shift it. It's the lack of awareness of what you're doing that it's generalized and you normalize things and you repeat. Like, most people think about it. Most people, and you probably know people in your life, most people are walking around repeating the same things over and over, have no idea that they're doing it. Right? You probably got a friend, you got a family member that you watch them just keep repeating the same thing and be like, it's obvious. And the thing is, you're watching their unconscious behavior from the outside. But when you're in your bubble, when you're in your mold, everything in you is trying to convince you to stay in it. Think about it. One of your brain's prime directive is to create the least amount of resistance. So if it was up to your brain, you would be in the bathroom, you would eat in the bathroom, you would poo in the bathroom, you wouldn't move. It wouldn't want you to do much. So if you have a resting place of home, and home is comfort only hits here, so we must sabotage here. At the unconscious level, your unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between positive and negative. So therefore it knows, take them back to home, take them back to home. So every time you hit that point, bring them back. It's normal. So in order to shift that, it's at the unconscious level. So here are a couple steps that you can do to shift this. Number one, you have to call it out. Calling it out is being aware of what's happening, right? And to be aware of what's happening, every level that you go and you move in life, every level that you change, every level that you succeed in, every level requires a new level of responsibility. And that new level of responsibility will create the change itself. You can't change this by blaming this person. You can't blame this by blaming the business. You can't change this by blaming the relationship. It just doesn't work. You're either the effect of the cause or you're causing the effect. And when you get in line with the cause of the effect, you become the creator. And you can see that you are a creator here. You're either creating the crap or you're creating this good. But once you see that creation either creates both, and when you recognize that you're creating both, then you're ready for the next step. The next step, after you can take responsibility and you've seen it and you're aware of it, it's about identifying what the pattern is, identifying your own behaviors, identifying your feelings, identifying like what's the belief. Like you could have an unconscious belief that I don't deserve to get what I want because I was told from a childhood that's what it was. Or maybe I feel guilty. At an unconscious level, if I succeed, I'm going to make my parents feel bad. Or if I succeed, I'm going to become different from the community. I'm going to become rejected. I'll be rejected from the people I love. Or there could be another one that I don't feel safe to do it because no one else has done it. Or if I do it, maybe I'm going to get judged by everyone around me. Or maybe I don't feel like I deserve it. Or maybe I'm just not good enough. There could be an underlying belief that could be running that. Or maybe it could be a way that you've learned. Once you identify what it is, at the core of it, you're expanding your awareness. Like think about it like this. Transformation, essentially, it's just an expansion of awareness. So the way you see something right here, when you expand your awareness to new ideas, new knowledge, new awareness, new experiences, new feelings, it's an expansion of awareness because everything was already here. If I ask you to go out to the road right now and you look at all the red cars and you see red cars everywhere, right? Before you put your focus on the red cars, they were already there. But if your focal vision, right, and you're stuck in this bubble and you're only seeing what you're seeing and you only know what you know, you only experience what you're experiencing, you're in a bubble. So the expansion of awareness is a thing that will cause the transformation. Once you become aware, then it's putting some strategies in place. Now, the strategies in place can be a different form. So you could do your inner work, you could learn some different ways. And the things that you want to be learning, right, is try to get away from trying to solve the problem on the outside. Like, as an example, if cash flow is an issue, right, and you've been working on the strategy for the last 2 years, if a relationship's an issue and you've been trying to work on the argument, winning the argument for the last 2 years, like, that's not going to work. You know, if you don't change anything, nothing would change. So instead of approaching it like that, ask yourself the question. It's like, okay, how do I want to show up here? How do I want to respond to the situation? Now, if I were to respond to this situation calmly and effectively, could I solve it in a different way? Or if I were to show up here in this relationship and instead of me talking, I count to 10 and I wait for things to settle down. And every time I grab that bottle, right? Every time I get those urges to have that drink or take that drug or whatever it is, every time I do that, what if I just wait? You know, sometimes it is just probably a 10-second, 20-second, 1 minute, 10 minutes, half an hour. You're half an hour away of not doing that thing for the whole day. And if you fight that urge at the beginning, you could just get over it and then you automatically regulate yourself. The question is, have you ever challenged yourself to challenge the thing that keeps pulling you in? So once you do that and you can recognize it and you can challenge it, the next part is about restructure. So restructure is looking at your life right now and how can I implement some more positive routines? So look at your routines. So as an example, create some type of routine that's for yourself. Go for a walk, 10-minute walk a day. Meditate, bring in some meditation. Do things that are going to connect with you. If you're someone that's pulled by doing this and helping this person and running on the business and talking to this person, if you're not pausing and stopping and doing something for yourself, then all you're doing is getting pulled and ripped apart everywhere in life. And you're just giving, which can end in burnout. So set powerful routines. One of the most powerful routines is not necessarily what you think it is. One of the most powerful routines, what I've found over the years helping people, is to become less reactive. What do I mean by that? Meaning that when you wake up in the morning, don't go for reactive behaviors. If you wake up in the morning, you grab your phone, you grab your social media, and you go straight for the coffee, or you go straight for the news, you go straight for the emails. What you're doing, you're waking up, you got this beautiful world, you're in your power, you're about to take on the world, and then pull, you get pulled to someone else, you get pulled to something else. And essentially what you're telling yourself, you're not worthy to be in your body more than 3 seconds. So someone else's responsibility, someone else's thing, someone else's expectation needs to be handled and attended to more than you. And normally a good routine is for the first 30 minutes, even to 60 minutes if you can push it, you make that solely about you getting present, solely about you educating your mind, solely about you getting back in your energy, going for a walk, meditating, listen to something. And if you do just that alone will set yourself up for a different day. Because come 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when you are getting reacted, at least your brain is not wired and set to be reactive, because in the morning we get an opportunity. We get an opportunity to influence the subconscious mind, because a lot of these things are coming from the subconscious level. And when we first wake up, we are at the most impressional time, brainwave states, theta brainwave states, where we could throw suggestions at the subconscious mind to change things. If we're just going into autopilot in the morning and we're finishing it at night, then we're just going around and around, repeating the same thing. So set up some really strong routines. You're worth it. It's the most important thing, really, to get your life structured in a way that's set for you to succeed. Do these few things, you recognize it, the pattern you're going through, whether it be business or relationships, you definitely break the cycle. But first and foremost, work out what you want and then take action. Thank you for listening. If you found value in this, share it with someone, or give me a comment down below, and looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye for now.